Hi, I'm Dave Roddenberry, Director of Veteran and Military Programs at the Governor's Institute. And today we'll examine the unique challenges faced by veterans as they navigate military to civilian transition process. We'll explore the psychological perspective of transition, pitfalls to be aware of, strategies for resilience, and the crucial role that we all can play as providers in supporting our veteran clients during this important phase. We'll also discuss the impact of transition on spouses and children as they navigate the journey alongside their veterans.
I just think a lot of veterans feel misunderstood. I think it's a stigma too that you shouldn't ask for help. You're supposed to be strong. Same with mental health when it comes to veterans. So I think for so long I was so embarrassed and tried to hide it. And then when I got help, it's like it set me free. I didn't have to be embarrassed anymore. So I will tell my story as many times as I can if it helps save another person. Like I will do it forever. My name is Jessica Case, and I'm a U.S. Navy veteran, and I live in Black Mountain, North Carolina. I'm a single mom of three boys. My soon-to-be 14-year-old is a wild child. Easton, the 10-year-old, is all into basketball, really likes to cook steak, and he actually does pretty good at it. And then Noxon is 8, and he is my baby. Overall, they're great kids. I've been very blessed with great kids. Every choice I make is because of my kids. I was stationed on the USS Ronald Reagan and the USS Nimitz in San Diego, California, and I did 2.5 years and got injured. When I moved back, I met my two youngest dads, and we were together for 10 years. And due to substance use and untreated mental health, he was very abusive. I was to the point where he was kicking me out with 3 children. And I Googled, single mom, disabled veteran, help. And I called this 1-800 number, and Brandon answered the phone.
I'm Brandon Davis. I served in the U.S. Army from 2003 to 2012, and I worked for Veteran Services of the Carolinas, and specifically the program NC serves. NC Serves currently serves all 100 counties of North Carolina. We believe that looking at healthcare as a total package as someone's overall health is what will ultimately drive success going forward. I believe what makes me good at my job is that I've been there. I have been homeless. I've been without a job, looking for help and being unable to find the resources that were out there. I spoke to Jessie the first time on the phone. She had been told by her ex that she wasn't eligible for anything. There wasn't anything out there for her. So I made it my mission to ensure that Jessie knew exactly what was out there for her. That she could, in fact, get benefits. She could find a career and purpose again.
Obviously, at first, it seemed too good to be true. All the gaslighting that makes you feel crazy, so I'm calling and asking for help, and to have somebody that actually is like, okay, yeah, let me help you and believe you. I mean, it's pretty awesome.
NCSERS is unique because when you call our coordination center, you can expect to either speak to a veteran themselves, a family member of a veteran, or trained mental health professional. We only want to help you achieve overall better health and ensure that you and your family are safe and healthy.
And I feel like from then on, it was just adrenaline. And I don't think I've stopped since. It was everything that I could do to improve my life and to improve my kids' life. So now I'm a peer support specialist for Veteran Services of the Carolinas, and I go to school at Mars Hill for social work. I want to help veterans in any way I can.
We often tell our teammates that we will never talk to somebody on a good day. The power shut off. There's no food in the house. If you're in need of help, please don't hesitate to call us. We're all brothers and sisters in arms. We're all here to support you.
Have you or a loved one ever served in the armed forces? NC for Vets is a one-stop shop for veterans to find the help they deserve. We have services that help with housing, health care, education, and a lot more. Learn more at ncforvets.org.
Hi, I'm Cindy Greenlee. I'm a psychologist and I work at the Durham VA Healthcare System in the Department of Mental and Behavioral Health Services. And today I'm talking about anger management and de-escalation. So what is anger? Anger is an emotion that we all have. However, for some, it can be very frequent or very intense or even harmful. And we recognize that, yeah, it's okay to have emotions. And if it's harmful or frequent or intense, it might be helpful to learn good strategies for managing it. So there are a lot of theories about where anger comes from, but there are two common things within these theories. First is that anger doesn't come out of nowhere. There are often some preceding emotions to the anger, which is also an emotion. So the preceding emotions tend to be things like fear or anxiety or frustration, which some people describe as like helplessness, but then also anger, or even feeling attacked or threatened or kind of backed up into a corner. Those are emotions that, when experienced, may lead to anger in the near future for some veterans. So that's preceding emotions. We also know that how we all interpret things can affect how often we experience anger. For example, people can be in the same exact situation, both be driving down the same highway at the same time, and have different experiences of that event. So for one person, they get cut off in traffic and they're honking the horn, cussing and fussing all the way down the road. And they're late to their appointment. They show up They're out of breath. They're upset with their providers. They're upset at everyone they see for the next half hour or several hours. Whereas someone else could be driving down that same highway, get cut off in traffic, get frustrated, that's normal, but are able to move past it and go to their appointment no problem. So we want you to be mindful of the fact that sometimes how we experience things affects our emotions.
Attention, carry, colors, ready, cut, forward, march. Colors, halt, right wheel, march. Forward, march, colors, halt, present, colors.
Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Carry, colors, ready, cut, counter march, march. Colors, halt, right, face, forward, march. Colors, halt, fall out.
All right, welcome everyone. Happy New Year and welcome to our first 2024 Governor's Working Group. I am Crystal Miller, Mecklenburg County Veterans Services Supervisor, and I will be your MC today. At this time, please rise for the presentation of the colors, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right shoulder. Forward. Ready. Go. More time. Good. Colors. Pose. Forward. Forward.
You may be seated. This meeting is dedicated to the memory and families of thousands of North Carolina veterans who have lost their lives to suicide. And I think that we know that's why we're all here, to improve the quality of life of our state's veterans. As a courtesy to those viewers joining us online, if you have comments later during the public comment session, we have a mic stand over here. There will be a mic. You can line up and speak into the mic so everyone who is online can hear either questions or comments that you may have. We have a very special guest with us today, the Mayor of Raleigh, Miss Mary Ann Baldwin.
Good afternoon, everyone. I just saw one of my favorite people out here. I just want to tell you that we are so pleased to be hosting all of you today. On behalf of the Raleigh City Council, thank you for being here, but also want to thank all of you veterans who are here, all of you whom we owe so much. My dad, my uncles, many of my cousins served our country, as all of you have. So I've seen firsthand some of the challenges, but also the opportunities. I was in DC last week for the U.S. Conference of Mayors, and one of the items we were laser focused on was housing for our veterans. I never knew that veterans had to make choices between food, healthcare, and housing. That is absurd. And we let our delegations know that. So we're in DC fighting for all of you, but in Raleigh, we're also doing our part. Raleigh and Wake County, we have decided and did decide that housing veterans was one of our top priorities. And through our affordable housing grants, we have been able to do that. I hope and pray that all of your cities and towns will put that focus on all of you. Today is going to be a day of learning and collaboration. And one thing I can do is attest to the qualifications of the expert panel you'll be hearing from. Healing Transitions is one of my favorite nonprofits. Every time I go there, I'm looking at you, Chris, I cry. I cry just thinking about the work they do. They change people's lives. Veterans are a large part of that population. I will also tell you, I have a homeless camp next door to where I live. A former vet who suffers from PTSD leads it. he's our neighbor. And I pray that he could have a place where he would feel safe and secure, but he feels safe and secure in his community. He doesn't want to leave the 4 people there. There's some feral cats who go and sleep with them every night. He doesn't want to leave his cats. And I think, what if we had a place where he could still have his cats, but it still have his community? We're not there yet, but we're working toward that. I also just want to say thank you again for being here. The only way we solve our challenges is by working together, not to complain, but to come up with solutions. And that's what today is all about. So let's make it happen. Thank you.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much for that welcome. And next up, Walter Gaskin, Secretary of the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs.
Thank you. Looking into this audience, I get motivated all the time because you get it. You understand that the sole purpose that we are here is to take care of our veterans, to connect the dots between the service that they have provided and the benefits that they have earned, and how we can make sure that they do that. This is our opening meeting, but it's just like the title. It is the working group. I also want to thank all of the vendors here, because you get it. You get those things that veterans need beyond the Veterans Benefit Service. You are the connecting file that puts us in that space. You're the one that helps define for the state. And I tell them every time, the state cannot make a veteran, but they can appreciate what the veterans have done in the name of the state. And that's why we are here, to make sure that we have oversight, that we have connectivity. And I also remind them, because of this group, and all of my counterparts in other states are jealous, because sitting right here on the front row, we have the best relationship with our Vision 6 and our VBA than any across the nation, because they get it and what we do. And that's why we have formed this group, to answer those things, because the first thing to solving problems is listening. If we don't find out who they are. So I'm excited about us getting together. And so I look forward to our discussion. I look forward to the panel. And I look forward to any concerns that comes from the community. When I get back to my part, I'll talk about DMVA and what issues that confront us in particular. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary. All right, our expert panel today, the legal frontlines, addressing substance use among justice-involved veterans. Some of my favorite people over there, too. Hey, Lucas. When I look out into this crowd, I see a crowd full of people with servants' hearts, and that is my passion, is to put people with servants' hearts together. So I'm going to introduce the panel. There is content warning. Some of the topics to be discussed may include suicide, self-injurious behavior, substance use, depression, post-traumatic stress, and/or other mental disorders which can act as triggers. Please feel free to excuse yourself at any point should you feel uncomfortable, and let somebody know. We'll come out with you. All right, I'm going to ask our panel to come up, and the moderator, Honorable Angel Menendez. Would you come up? Come on up. He will moderate for us today. He is the State of North Carolina District 10 Magistrate, retired. Panelist, Honorable Lou Oliveira. District Court Judge, Cumberland County Veteran Treatment Court. Please come up. Panelist Chris Budnick, Executive Director of Healing Transitions. Look forward to hearing from you. Panelist Lucas Verbirski, Veterans Justice Program, Durham Veterans Administration Healthcare System, and Derek Sharp, our resident Marine, I'm told, and security analyst, the United States Marine Corps combat veteran. Welcome to our panel, and you may be seated.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Great, great. It's great to be here with you, and we have a great event going on with some panel experts speaking from the heart, speaking from their personal perspective and their knowledge and wisdom and what they do day in and day out on behalf of veterans. So we have Chris Budnick. I'm going to have them briefly introduce themselves. Chris Budnick. We have Judge Oliveira. We have Lucas. And we have Derek Sharp. So please, Judge.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. Like it says up there, I'm one of the judges in Cumberland County. I do many courts there, but I've been doing the Veterans Treatment Court for probably close to 11 years outside Fort Bragg.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Budnick, and I work with Healing Transitions. I'm a person in recovery, and I've had the blessing and the privilege of serving individuals that come to our organization to transform and restore their lives.
Peace and blessings. I'm Lucas Frubsky, social worker with the Durham VA, work with veterans inside state and federal prisons, trying to help them prepare for coming home.
Hello, everybody. I'm Derek Sharp. I am blessed to I'm also in recovery. I got 10 years now. And I started my journey in 2014 here in North Carolina. And I look forward to helping this evolve to see positive change for individuals that come after me and that are out there now.
Thank you, panel, for your brief introduction. Now we start with the discussion points that we have. We have approximately 10. We hope to get through all of them, but if we don't, we're going to give it a very, very, very best shot to certainly address those issues that we've found to be of interest and of importance. Judge, Chris, and Lucas, what are the links between substance abuse disorder and the criminal justice system? Chris, you want to?
Sure. Thank you. It's a long and somewhat complicated relationship, particularly for those addicted to drugs other than alcohol, which up until 1914 was not a criminal offense. And so we've seen certainly over the years different responses to addiction and intersections with public safety. We are fortunate in many ways that with the opioid crisis that has been going on for many years, that there's been an emphasis on a public health approach as well as a public safety approach, but that hasn't always been the case. And it's important that we continue to maintain that moving forward because, as I've heard many people say in public safety, we can't arrest our way out of these problems. And it's also important to recognize that there is, the community really gets robbed of opportunities if we don't get people help and only give them incarceration. The contributions that people can make when they get into recovery and transform their lives benefits everybody.
Thank you. Judge, would you care to add to what Chris's discussion is?
No, he's absolutely right. Outside Fort Bragg, you have North Carolina is probably the largest military community in the nation with Jacksonville, Fort Bragg, and Seymour Johnson. But I served for 8 years in combat, and I was injured, and the military was very good at tossing pills at you. And so, many years ago, Betty Goolsby, who was the director of the VA, said that the military and the VA was used to treating that as a symptom. So they would toss pills, and in the military, they want you, a good soldier will charge on, kind of, sleep deprivation and through pain and injury, that makes them a good soldier. So there's kind of a link of treating that injury, and then when they get out, for whatever reason, because of substance abuse issues or mental health issues, or just end of enlistment, that substance abuse kind of sometimes lingers on. And then you see them, in many communities, get involved in criminal justice system, or characterized as justice evolved vets, for assortment of crimes, and that's how we deal with them in our Veterans Treatment Court. We try to address those issues that have been prevalent with them for many years.
Great, thank you. Lucas, you got some points to make and some experience to talk about?
Thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
So definitely, I think having a historical context, right? So when we talk about the opioid epidemic, we do well to remember that this is not the first one, that the first one was after the Civil War, right? And there was a lot of difficulties. When we look back at our history of laws regarding substances other than alcohol, we can look at the Harrison Narcotic Act of 1914, which criminalized all substances. We could look at the failed lessons from Prohibition, which we didn't glean. We could look at the war on drugs starting in 1971 and realize that these are all of the laws have never been about safety or health, right? If we look at them, they've always been tied to race and class, right? So from the first one outlawing opium dens in California, which was targeted against Chinese immigrants, right? Or when marijuana became criminalized. So it's always been tied to race or class. I think that's really important. So to look at it from a public health standpoint would require us to maybe stop trying to stigmatize and criminalize, right? If we're talking about what we know as a brain disorder that impairs the frontal cortex and makes decision-making difficult, we might want to treat it as such, right? So with veterans, we know that the majority of folks coming out are able to come back into our communities, right, with some assistance. I work for the VA. I'm grateful. I don't represent them in any way, shape, or form. These are my comments. But we know that the VA for many years was the biggest pusher on the block all around, right? You want a 90-day script in the mail? Here you go. And then what we did when we saw that, oh, this is a problem, is we cut folks off. So where do you think folks went to get their pain met? I'd also be remiss if I didn't say that we have to look at the social determinants of health, right? So we're talking about whole people, right? So addiction, substance use disorder, chaotic use, whatever you want to call it, that's one piece of a person, right? And we got to celebrate like any positive change. So trying to move away from criminalizing and more treating people as human beings and members of our community.
Awesome, thank you. How do we get veterans the help they need regarding substance abuse programs in our area, in our community? Judge, you want to?
Well, there are so many different programs out there, but yeah, you have to gain a rapport. The person wants to, will have to want to get help, and a lot of times, as I would say, service members, maybe we're not the trusting of most people, or like to be left alone. So it's kind of hard to break that barrier. In my position, I kind of deal with them on a forced march, unfortunately, but also fortunately. But even while they have to be there under a probationary, or we also do a pretrial program also, I think you have to gain a rapport with them. And so if you gain that rapport with them, I think they're more likely to kind of engage in those programs, mental health or substance abuse, if they kind of feel you're there for them, not necessarily there to put them in orange and send them to jail.
I often have heard you say, Judge, to meet them where they are. What does that mean to you when you're in a courtroom and courtroom setting with a veteran in front of you? Meet them where they are.
Well, the only rule I kind of have in my Veterans Court is be honest. Be honest with me and be honest with yourself if you need help. We have Bill Latham is here. He's our Vets Treatment Court coordinator, and Chris as our mentor coordinator, both of them. We're lucky in Cumberland County, it being the largest military community, that they say you can't sling a stick without hitting a veteran. And so everyone on our team are veterans. And so I think you're able to gain a rapport with those participants. It's not going to be a snap of the fingers. And so you kind of have to gain their rapport and their trust. And I think once you do that, then they're more perceptive to kind of doing those things for themselves and trusting in you. So that's kind of, there's that thing about, saying about veterans in a hole, and his pastor throws down a rope and to get him out, and his spouse throws down the rope to get him out. But then a fellow veteran climbs down the hole with him, and he says, "What are you doing down here?" He says, "I'm here to help you get out." And so there are a lot of good intentions out there, but you have to gain that rapport for the veteran to do any type of movement.
Great. At the Healing Transition here in Raleigh, Chris, how do you meet the veteran where they are?
So what Judge was sharing, the idea of establishing rapport with people is really important. And one of the ways that that happens, and the way it happens at Healing Transitions, is through people's shared experiences. So people may not be considering making a change, and sometimes we may think that that looks like, that they're not ready or they don't want it. But sometimes it's kind of getting a little bit of faith and hope to take action. And folks who can share their lived experience, and our model is a peer-based program. 75% of our staff are alumni. The participants play an active role, and we're Healing Transitions now. We used to be called the Healing Place. But that peer component is very critical, because it can bring people to a place of both making a decision, believing that there could be a different future for them. But I think what's really important about this also is that that's critical across many different stages of development. So you can think of recovery as involving like pre-covery, which is the person's not even really thinking about it yet, and how do we move them to a place to start to consider that. And then they get to a place where maybe they start thinking about, what could my life look like without this? And then there's another opportunity, which is, now that this has happened, what does my future look like? And when the person is still using, there's no thought, time, or energy put into what could my life look like. And having people who can be role models and build rapport and be examples to help inspire and encourage are really important. And that's kind of been one of the shortcomings historically of addiction treatment, is that we've really been focused kind of on that crisis intervention and not enough involvement with getting people kind of ready and supporting them after the intervention. This isn't veteran specific, but we've been really pleased with our partnership with Wake County EMS. Paramedics were feeling frustrated responding to overdoses and administering Narcan, and questioning whether what they were doing was making a difference. And we said, maybe if we could pair you with somebody who's had overdose experience and is in recovery now, maybe they would be a resource. And so that's really transformed a lot of the ways for this population of folks who are experiencing overdose, that we're able to start engagement and, both reduce harm, but also increase the risk for finding recovery and a better life.
Great, thank you. All right, talk to us about early intervention strategies that have worked for you in your personal life, and what you've seen work for other veterans like you. And what does that look like in your mind?
So for me, from my experience, I have really noticed that veterans come in two flavors mainly. We're either 0 or 100. We're either going to keep getting back up regardless of the circumstances, whether our decisions we made were good or bad, or we will sit down and get comfortable with our mistakes and our demons and isolate and kind of wither away. Sadly, I have gone through both, but the early intervention of individuals in my life, and some of which are on this panel, having someone not just believe in me and want to help me, but held me accountable at my level, met me where I was, and I'll put the same amount of work in that you put in. I'm going to walk the path with you. I'm here if you need me. Like a judgment-free environment. When I came down here in North Carolina in 2014, I ran away from Pennsylvania and the issues that I had there. Tried to reach out for help, and it ran me over. I, tried to do everything I could. Plus, I was ill-equipped at the time. I was a young kid, stepped on an ID, was shot, So the best early intervention is finding those veterans that are the 100, helping them so that they can go back and be peer support network for the zeros, to help them be 100. Because we all have it within us to be that. We just need the proper food and guidance, which is lack of knowledge mostly, and the stigma, the stink that veterans have over decades, not just the Iraq War, Vietnam, Desert Storm. I mean, as long as we've had wars in this country, that's, from my opinion and my experience, that's what's helped me, and I've seen it help, and I've helped other veterans the same way. That's helped out the most.
Derek, thank you for your personal story and sharing it with us in the audience. Thank you. When we say drug criminalization of drugs in our area, in our state, what does that look like, and what does that mean to a veteran standing before you, Judge?
Well, I have no control over the laws that pass, depending on state to state. Every state has a different, I guess, criminalization of laws and drugs. But it's almost like, let me think about this. It's kind of like a larceny. A larceny, one person may steal a can of soup and another person may steal a car. There's a difference. And so with the criminalization of drugs, especially when I deal with them in Veterans Court, you kind of have to just, I don't want to say dissect, but you have to kind of really step back and see what is going on there. And so while as a judge, and as you well know, we're not here to kind of choose and pick the laws we like or we don't like. Absolutely. And so, but what we do have a big impact on is after that, is how we provide justice. And in that justice, it's, prevent recidivism. And in that justice, it's also assisting the state to have citizens that are not engaged in those type of behaviors, and to assist the individual so they don't further deteriorize in those type of behaviors. And so I think, as you well know, in the criminal justice system, when we deal with it, whether we like the laws or not, we have to definitely kind of deal with it in an afterwards manner. And in Veterans Court, that's exactly kind of what we do. So we see individuals from a variety. You don't see them just for drug offenses. You may see them for larcenies. You may see them for assault of conducts, domestic violence cases. And so, but just because you see what the crime is, that's not necessarily indicative of what the issues are under those charges.
Thank you, Judge. Now we're talking about the criminalization of drugs inside the courtroom, within the criminal justice system. What does the criminalization of drugs look like, Chris, at the healing transition, for example? What is it? What is your take? What is your historical perspective on the criminalization of drugs?
Yeah, so it's a balance that exists. There's real public safety issues that need to be considered. Addiction creates public safety issues. But being all the way on one side like that, divorcing it from public health responses and opportunities for recovery, casts aside people and ultimately doesn't benefit us. We don't want to just have complete public health responses without thinking about individual and community safety. I think a lot of times there's complexity to what's involved. And so when thinking about an issue, it's not always just one thing. So there can be legislation passed like the Good Samaritan Law. And the Good Samaritan law comes about because we want, particularly for parents who have lost a child, they want to feel like, for the next parent, that if their kid has an overdose, that folks don't feel terrified to call for help. How that is applied can look different. And then so sometimes what my role looks like is around advocacy and so forth. So we had, at Healing Transitions, we've developed a very robust overdose prevention and response program. We have overdoses that happen sometimes on our property, sometimes near our property. We had somebody that was staying with us during cold weather in 2022, getting shelter for the night, and they had an overdose. And, you know, everyone kind of responds to the 911 call, fire, EMS, and law enforcement. And the person was successfully saved, left with EMS. Law enforcement spent some time asking who folks were that, you know, responded to the crisis. And then, again, this is not necessarily representative of all law enforcement, but this officer went in and then ran those names to see if there were outstanding warrants, and then came in and, you know, arrested one of the guys that had just responded to a traumatic event. And so that involved kind of advocacy on my part, not just then, but also in future situations, and talking about, like, we want to be very respectful and try to be understanding of the important work that you do as an under-resourced, you know, organization. I know that there's a lot of vacancies, a lot of stress upon them. We want to be sensitive to the work that you have to do, but please believe in the work that we do and try not to contribute to things that will discourage folks from wanting to receive help from us. So that's like kind of some of the real life examples of trying to be respectful of both the role of law enforcement, the laws in our state and our country, public safety considerations, public health considerations, but also not losing sight of that individual who may not, like, be the person that had the overdose, but was part of the response. And we need to believe that they deserve opportunities, and we need to foster and facilitate that.
Great, thank you. Derek, you touched on stereotypes. What does that look like for you, if you want to share with us from a personal perspective or from others that you've seen? And also, what does fear look like? Is the fear of being judged, is that real? Share that with us as well, please.
When we're in the military, it's very hard for us to, now I'm from the infantry, so specifically from an infantry mind state. If I let anyone know that combat affected me the way that I did, I will not get be up for board to get a promotion. I might be removed from my team. It might hold me back in other ways. I might, you know, be separated from my team and put elsewhere. And that transfers when you get out and transition into the civilian world, where, for me, the local VA was very good at giving me any and all medications. I was a zombie in my own chair for a long time. When I reached out and asked for help, it didn't go well. Legal issues soon came after, and it really closed me up and isolated me when
Take it easy.
It broke my heart. The country I served and gave my life didn't listen to me as an individual. I was a number, I was a cog in the wheel, and they just used it to keep on going. Whatever they could to keep it from hitting the news or being an insurance claim or just a bad name for somebody else. Instead of hearing the cries for help before a lot of anger turned into violence, turned into suicidal ideations, turned into just a mess, and it just spider-balled. Not having the network, not having a judgment-free zone, the populace not having the knowledge, you know, not just veterans, but the allies, because, you know, we're one country. We should stand together at the best and the worst of times, and it didn't feel like that at all. So after everything had gone, I moved down to North Carolina as a homeless veteran, where I met Chris, left the house that I owned and everything, and all but gave up. And that was 10 years ago. So it's very real. And it's going to be hard to show and prove that it's possible for me to be sitting here right now, unless we all work together. But the fear is real. And that's why a lot of us isolate suicide. It's only two types of veterans, 0 or 100.
There, we appreciate it. Thank you.
If I could add to that,
Absolutely.
you know, to his well put point, and that was what, if you take away anything from today, is veterans are, like you said, 0 or 100. And so gaining that rapport, gaining that trust is instrumental, because the military ingrains in you, suck it up and drive on, you know, and if you're hurting, you know, here's some pills. And if you're tired, suck it up and drive on. And so a good soldier does that, and it trains you from start to finish to be that way. And then when you get out, you're supposed to just throw that mindset away. And so in any type of, you know, engagement with the veterans, you have to gain that rapport. And that's why I always say, you know, be honest. Be honest with yourself, be honest with them, and then those barriers, you know, they don't, I'm untrustworthy. I don't trust anybody. And so I'm not trying to be funny about it. It's just, so I prefer to kind of be by myself. And if someone walks up to me, I'll do the smile and shake your hand. But we all get tired. We all get frustrated. We all suffer, you know, our private demons. But in order for that person to open up to you, he has to kind of think, well, why are you here? What's in it for you? And when they realize there's nothing in it for you besides helping your buddy, then there's a chance for you to kind of make some movement. So thank you for sure.
Great point, Judge. And I've seen that firsthand in your courtroom in dealing with veterans and your staff as well, to understand where that veteran's coming from, understand their perspective, and perhaps attempt to walk a day in their shoes, an hour in their shoes, to understand where they're coming from. So I've seen it firsthand in the courtroom while Judge Oliveira's been presiding for a number of years, working with veterans and dealing with their issues and working through the knotty, difficult issues that veterans face each and every day. So thank you, Derek, and thank you, Judge. Lucas, what does a veteran support system from the VA perspective look? What does that look like to you?
That's a great question, sir. Thank you. So I want to first give respect to Flo and Harold, who are in here, who helped start the governor's working group, 15, 20 years ago or so. I want to point out Martin Woodard and my man John Turner, Veterans Life Center, which has been operational for a year, which kind of started from conversations in this room and other rooms a number of years ago. And so the point being that the VA recognizes, and correct me if I'm wrong, boss, that we have to link with the community. I think we've done a much better job in the last couple decades of not being as siloed, right? It takes the whole community. When an individual raises their hand and pledges to defend against foreign and domestic, there's a societal contract that's started, right? So the Veterans Administration is one piece of that contract, but it requires all of us, right? And so I think that from the VA perspective, it means that we've got to continue to build relationships and try to link communities of care, right? We've done better with the community in the care, where when we recognize, like, hey, it takes 8 months to get a mental health appointment, that's not acceptable, we'll pay for you to be seen in the community, right? But then what we don't do the best job with is the link and making sure that that care is continued. The other thing we've done better with is look at a more of a holistic perspective, right? And that it's not just my mental health condition. It's not just my substance use disorder. Like, where am I linked for community purpose and meaning, right? I think those are really important things. And if I could go off script real briefly.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. For the scope, in North Carolina, there's 30,000 folks that are in state prisons, right? There's over 80,000 people that are under community supervision. We don't have the best way to know how many of those folks are veterans. When I first started in this role, it was about 10% nationally of folks in prisons were veterans. In North Carolina, now it's closer to 6%. So that means of those 30,000 plus people in state prisons, about 2,500 are veterans, right? We don't have the best way to capture how many veterans are in jail because we often don't ask the question, did you serve, right? So I can't stress how important it is to ask that question, right? So I just kind of wanted to give that scope. I'd also say related to substance use, in March of 2023, the North Carolina Division of Adult Corrections came out with a substance use disorder treatment program report. And of the over 12,000 people that they did intake SASE screenings on, over 9,000 met criteria for either intermediate or long-term treatment. So that means at least 78% of folks, and that's probably underreport, right? Because some folks, there's language barriers, you know, they're in segregation, they can't get it. So I'm saying if that's the number of folks that need help who are in prison, what we've got to do a much better job of is way before that, how are we helping?
Absolutely, Judge.
Could I add something?
Absolutely.
So my treatment court coordinator, Bill Latham's kind of smirking at me a little bit, but in Cumberland County, it took us for about a year. We're still working on it. We're trying to identify not only the veterans that are in prison, but the veterans that have come through the criminal justice system. It's been very difficult. So we've kind of are in the process of developing. We've gotten data dumps from the AOC, and this is helpful if anyone is thinking about opening a veterans treatment court or does any type of in-prison type of assistance. So the AOC, after a year of kind of struggling, has given us the data of every person that's charged in our county. We get them on a quarterly basis. And then Bill, the workhorse of our group, we're developing a database to take that data from the AOC and then filter it through Squares. And I don't know if anyone knows what Squares is. We're doing Squares, right? VRSS, excuse me. The VRSS, the Veteran Reentry Service System. And what that does, if you're not aware with it, it identifies the individual whether they're in the military or not. So what we do is we scrub the data from AOC of every person that's charged. And that includes those that are incarcerated in the jails. And then we filter it through the VRSS system, which is run by the VA, and it will tell us, it'll spit out who is justice-involved vets. And so we're in the process of doing that, and we're happy to share that process with anyone else, especially through the working group here. But that's something we're in the process of doing, which assists us greatly in identifying those justice-involved vets that we're not getting into. Because guess what? You know, when you come through the criminal justice system or the jail or residually, you're not sitting there and go, hey, I'm a vet, give me some help. And so, but it gives you the ability to identify them to then start that report process, whether it's pre-trial, post-conviction, or any of those matters. So if you can kind of hit up the big guy over there in green if you want some more information on that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Lucas. Lucas, from a VA perspective, how do we work through the layers or cut through the layers, if you will, to get that veteran the help they need and the support they need? How do we do that? And what does that look like?
That's a terrific question. So the VA, as most government organizations, is famously known for bureaucratic red tape, right? And so one of the things we have to do is be able to cut through some of that. Unfortunately, and this is not a reflection on the VA, this is all of our, except for healing transitions and a couple other spots, we don't have a firehouse model for substance use disorder, right? So if my house is on fire, I call, people come, spray the water, try to save it, right? If I'm saying I need help, you know, I'm living with addiction, this is what's going on in my life, unfortunately, we don't have the number of beds that are necessary around. Ask your question one more time.
How do we cut through? How do we cut through the layers, the thick layers that exist to help that veteran, to get that veteran the help they need, the support they need?
So I think it goes back to, again, relationships and community, right? And remembering, like, what truly is our mission, right? So if the VA's mission is to help those who have borne battle, right, then we want to keep that up front in everything that we do. Do we have a lot of work to do? Absolutely. But with the help of all of you people in here, we can continue to do that. And we need our community partners to hold us accountable, right? So as a cog in the wheel, I often say that I work for the ancillary branch of the war machine in the belly of the beast. As a cog in the wheel, oftentimes the comments I might have to improve things might not be taken, because, you know, like I'm just down here, right? But when you guys say something, it can change, right? So that's some of the reasons that we have mental health access in Durham, because of our community members and veteran service officers who have said, hey, we need a better response. So it goes back to relationships, and then I think patience and persistence, right? And recognizing that there's barriers, but that together we can continue.
In partnership, right? Like you had mentioned in partnership.
Yes, sir.
So, great.
So Lucas is a good example of that relationship building. So he visits a lot of the programs and resources in the community. So it makes it much easier if there's a need for him to pick up the phone and call directly, and folks are familiar with him, you know, and so that's a good example of kind of that relationship building. I also think it's important to not lose sight of the informal networks. So there's a lot of informal networks out there that provide information. Derek learned about our services from one of our alumni, you know, and so there's a lot of informal networks out there that talk about where to get help, how to get help, and I think it's always important to kind of remember that they're out there and that they exist.
Thank you, Chris. Derek, what are the effects of isolation to a veteran, and how does that impact, and is it real?
It's dangerous, and it is real. And it's kind of like misery loves company. It'll stick to you. And it'll give you comfort, and it'll give you something to go back to anytime you, because a lot of us lose our identity when we get out of the military. We don't have purpose, we're medicated, you know, me personally, like I said, I stepped on an IED and I was shot. I spent 4 years in the hospital. So I was all but institutionalized by the time I even wheeled out of there. Didn't feel like I was worthless. And that is a dangerous place to become comfortable for a very long period of time. And it's very hard to get out of. And it leaks into relationships. It leaks into even individuals that are willing to help you. You unknowingly push them away because they never see you. They see you once in a great while, and then all of a sudden they don't see you at all. But on what I was saying earlier, the knowledge that individuals like me exist and are out there, and the knowledge transfer from individuals that are on this panel, and Mayor and General Gaskins and everyday passerbys could all help link the vast amount of resources that are local and state and federal and community built and volunteering and all that together. Because it's not that we don't have the resources, we do. It's that they're scattered and we're not holding each other accountable and we're not communicating properly. Different languages, different perceptions, but isolation is dangerous. It really is.
Yes, yes, Chris.
A couple thoughts that come up listening to Derek is one, I think it's helpful for folks to think about how to help people as beyond just this intervention. We kind of, a lot of times people are sold on the idea if you just go to treatment, then that's going to solve the problem, and then they're terribly disappointed when somebody relapses or worse yet dies. And I think we got to really shift this mindset and think, you know, we don't have that expectation with cancer. We don't have that expectation with hypertension. We have this expectation that there may be this intervention, but there's going to be ongoing follow-up, and we're thinking about person over the long term. And then a lot of our formal systems aren't set up real well because they're not billable for that sort of stuff. So I think professionals and systems can do a lot to learn about indigenous and informal communities of support and how to link folks to those, because that's where a lot of the kind of resilience can reside, to help people stay engaged and not feel like an afterthought once they're done with a formal program, and to continue to be in an indigenous kind of community of support that can buffer against isolation.
Thank you, Chris.
I
Derek.
I don't want the message to be, woe is me or I'm a victim. It should be more of community and has given me the fuel that, you know, they believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. I'm not a victim. If I was, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. I wouldn't be able to afford these really nice clothes and have a beautiful wife and kid and an amazing handicap accessible house that I seen you at just a few months ago there, sir. We are not victims. We can be extremely productive members of society. We just need the right accountability and guidance, not judgment.
That's a great point, Derek. So essentially, you're wanting a hand up, not a hand down, and you want the community support so that you can be the best citizen that you can. Citizen and a family person, family man to your family as well. So thank you. Lucas, in terms of the VA, what does it look like in terms of anticipating the needs of a veteran or veterans within a community? What does that mean to the VA, let's say 5-10 years from now? What does that look like? Or can you envision or sharing with us what the VA is looking at and what is the future 5-10 years from now?
Do you need that disclaimer again?
Please, please. We've got some other folks in the room that could probably much better answer this question. Steve, Pete, Ms. Cruz, some of y'all. So one thing is, of course, just looking at the population, right, and seeing the population rises. So we can see that the VA in North Carolina has responded to that. We have, clinics in different communities now, right, where it used to be, you got to ride all the way to Durham, Fayetteville, Salisbury, Asheville, and that's a wrap. Now we have some community clinics, right, and we're building more. Again, I think what it looks like is continuing to collaborate and continuing to build partnerships, right? Because we hopefully have learned. So we've learned from, the folks that came back from Vietnam and had a less than favorable welcome home, right? And we've tried to do better with yellow ribbon events, when folks are, when units are first coming back, making sure that there's information available. But we got to continue to do that. I mean, I'm sure General Gaskins and his team could talk about how less than 50% of veterans in North Carolina get care from the VA, right? Or we're not even necessarily completely clear. The veteran service officers do a tremendous job of bringing resources back into the community, helping folks access service-connected compensation, right? Helping folks access GI Bill and educational. But unfortunately, we don't fund those services enough, right? And that's more of a representation of the state, and I don't want to get off a topic. Well, what I'm trying to say is that these folks are bringing money and resources back into the community and helping individuals live their best lives and be fully functioning, right? So what does 5 to 10 years look like for the VA? We know that we're going to continue to have folks that need care and assistance, and we are striving to do better, to do partnerships, and make sure that people have better experiences than they did in the past. Is that fair, Pete?
Yes.
If I could add to that, especially in vets court, the VJOs do a great job. And so in a vets court team, we have like a public defender, a DA, probation, parole, police department, our mentor corps, but when we have the VJO, the veteran justice officers from the VA, and so they come to every session and our pre-staffing, and they're there to kind of quickly assess the incoming veterans and make sure they have their appointments and stuff like that too. But there's a mindset when you talked about only 50% of our veterans in North Carolina getting any medical care. There's a mindset that I'm good. And I remember when years ago a veteran came to our vets court. And I said, well, listen, go to the VSO, which is the County Veteran Service Officer, and see if you're, any disabilities, because we're good. And he said, okay, well, have you gone? I went, no, I'm not gone. And this young soldier, and I guess the speak that some of our veterans are used to, most especially me, salty in a salty way, told me, well, sir, don't tell me to do something if you're not expletive willing to do it yourself. And I went, great point. And so we have to get past that mindset of we're good, I'm not severely injured and stuff like that too. And so, you have to encourage those people. And I come across people all the time that served, and I go, well, why don't you just go down to the VSO, it's kind of like playing in the NFL, so whether you serve 2, 4, 12, 20, 30 years, and just let me twist your arm for 4 years every day. Sooner or later, whether even that minor thing is going to affect you. And so you have to get past that mindset. And I think that's kind of why, North Carolina having the largest military community in the nation and only 50% go to the VA is kind of something that needs to be addressed. But you have to address the mindset that goes along with that to kind of overcome that.
Yes.
And I want to also mention that of veterans, right, like discharge and length of service. So one other thing the VA has done nationally is try to expand eligibility. So for folks who had, other than honorable discharges, now eligible for emergent mental health, now eligible for some of the transitional housing and HUD-VASH things, right? And again, the only reason that happened is because veterans and community members got together and said, hey, of all those folks committing suicide, a large portion aren't even eligible to get help at the VA, right? And it also goes back to education and knowledge, right? Because if you have more than one hitch, you could still get services, right? Even if your last one. But a lot of us at the VA don't know that, and so we might even tell folks, sorry, you can't get anything. So it's the partnerships and the loop of accountability.
Thank you, Lewis. And to your point earlier, General Gaskins and his team do exceptional work in connecting veterans to services. Again, connecting veterans to services. We can have 1,001 services, but if veterans are not connected, services are not doing any good. They do an exceptional work. So thank you, General. How do we become veteran change agents? And how do we improve the lives of individual veterans while still focusing on what's most important, the veteran himself or herself and their family?
So the old school Minnesota model of substance use treatment kind of looked at folks have to hit a bottom before they get help, right? William White and some other folks talk about the importance of like infusing hope. Maybe folks don't have to hit the bottom. Maybe I've been living on the bottom for a long time, whether that's emotionally, whether that's physically, whatever, right? How do we infuse hope into folks? And I think some of the panelists did a fine job of by building rapport with other folks who have shared experience, right? And seeing the change that's happened, right? So there's a couple folks in this room who've, been kind enough to go into prisons with me and share stuff with folks, right? And I didn't serve, right? I didn't serve in the military and I didn't serve in prison. And so to hear from someone who has that experience is a lot better than to hear it from some kind of poverty pimp like me, right? So again, the importance of informal networks and infusing hope.
Thank you, Lucas. And this is for the panel to chime in. How do we build a veteran-centric culture within our community? How do we do that, and what does that look like?
Well, it's easy in Cumberland County. Like I said earlier, you can't sling a stick without hitting someone in a uniform. So it's kind of easier if you live in Jacksonville, Seymour Johnson. But really, every community has a veteran. I mean, you know, either we've served or we know someone that served. And so there was an article I remember reading years ago how the VFW has changed over the years. There's a different mindset
That's
now.
right.
And so so you just have to kind of reach out. Every community is different. It's just like every individual we deal with is different. And so reach out to those local organizations that are in your community and see what you can do. But like I said earlier, one of the things we're doing, especially in our larger communities, and you know, while Wake County may not be it's a large, or Charlotte is a large community, you know, those databases, you know, your VJOs, your VSOs, you know, if they have the ability to identify those veterans, because they're not going to go up and go, hey, I need some help. You know, you just have to gain a rapport, and sometimes it's just kind of having an event, and some people will come, and then they may take something away, whether it's paperwork, or they may engage you in a conversation. So you just kind of, I think, have to assess the community you're in, and then kind of just, you know, put a welcome out there and kind of see who shows up.
Great panel. Thank you all for providing your insight, your perspective, and your knowledge on various veteran issues. We thank you. And at this time, any questions from the audience, please address them.
Do I have to stand? Okay, good. Paul Cruz, Department of Veteran Affairs. Not Lucas's boss. Well, I'm his boss's boss's boss. But, and he did very well today. So I did great. You did great. A couple of things, that's really weird sounding. A couple of things, if I could, just some questions that you answered, if you don't mind. One of the things about, and it was a great answer about breaking through bureaucracy and how do you deal with that? Well, in the past, we all looked at the veteran crisis line or the veteran suicide line as only for suicides. But this day and age, the Veterans Crisis Line 988, just want to say that again, 988, if you're at the end of your rope, if a veteran is at the end of the rope, even if it's not you, but you know a veteran who is at the end of the rope, you can make that call to 988 and to break through that barrier of the bureaucracy and get straight into getting service and getting care and making sure that we're addressing that mental health crisis or that crisis that's impending. So I just want to say that. The other thing about your comment about how do we do better at making sure that everybody has access, and Lucas mentioned this a little bit, but I just want to call out the legislation. It's called the Compact Act, which just came out last year, which allows any veteran, doesn't matter if you just had a bed conduct discharge, doesn't matter if how long you served, well, it does matter if you've served. It doesn't matter if you're service connected or VA eligible. If you're having a mental health crisis, you can go to any medical center, so any private medical center, and the VA will pay for that care and will pay for an extended period of time to get you out of that episode of care and get you into the VA for services. So something that a lot of places don't know. I was just talking with the CEO of Wake Med here just this morning and having those discussions about these are resources that are out there that maybe a lot of folks don't know about because they're new, and it's how do we get this information out? Well, we do it through these. But I just think it's a really, really good model and something that people should be taking a part in. And the last thing is I think it's really important, and the VA, working along with Governor's Working Group, General Gaskins, myself, and some of our VSOs are working with Gilling School of Public Health and a program where we're trying to build a model that's called Building Veteran Healthy Communities. It's where we really do try to help surround our veterans who live in our communities, who maybe we don't know. You know, the majority of the folks who commit suicide, or the veterans who commit suicide, are not even enrolled in the VA. But somebody in their community knows them. And how can we build community capacity to recognize failed social determinant of health or some kind of pending mental health crisis way upstream, not waiting until we get down worried about lethal means. We need to be way upstream and turning a veteran into open arms of resources that are available to them. So there's a model being built here, working with the Governor's Working Group and working with the UNC School of Public Health and the VA to build those types of models where communities can build that. And we talk about communities, it's not just a city or a town, but we're also talking about large employers, faith-based organizations in a lot of different places. So thanks. Just want to throw those out there.
Thank you, Director.
Director, if I could add something to that. I thought about this last year. I suspect, and I'm not a mental health professional, but I suspect when someone's going through a mental health crisis, there's probably a hesitancy, especially in a veteran mindset of, let me get in my car and drive to the VA, or let me pick up a phone, I don't know who I'm talking to. So I think in the day and age, we have to kind of maybe change how we approach that. And I thought about, if there's anyone out there who's really good at apps, maybe there's some sort of app. Everyone has their phone I'm sure everyone has their phone, and while I hate social media, how many of y'all check social media today? Not to go on Facebook and request help, but maybe there's some sort of technological different ways of engaging those kind of younger minds, where you hit an app and maybe you talk to a fellow veteran in your community or something like that, versus getting in a car and going to the VA is probably not something someone under distress is probably, especially when you have that mindset, leave me alone, and as Derek said, that misery is a heavy warm blanket, even though it's not healthy. So maybe us thinking about how to make it easier for those technological means, whether you're an app or something like that. Because I think getting on a phone call, it takes courage, and self-resilience that maybe that person at that moment doesn't really possess. And so we have to kind of maybe think about different ways on how to kind of bridge that gap.
That's right.
Great point, Judge. There is actually, the crisis line does have an app, texting, and chat components as well. And then there's also...
Was that a good plug? Did you alley-oop? There you go. Send me a check later on. Thank you.
Well, thank you, panel.
I'm Najla Munjauer with Wake County Veteran Services. Hi, Lucas. Nice to see you in person. I work with the practical application of these events with my housing, with my veterans in our community. Please help me understand in North Carolina how we can better coordinate the supports needed for our justice involved and our veterans that are in the midst of a substance abuse crisis to support the interventions that we're talking about today. So here's what I'm asking. We have folks that are justice involved and they end up not being able to stay with family because of legal requirements. You have young families that have one car. So somebody can't get to work if you can't stay together. They're not eligible for food stamps because their together income makes them ineligible, but they can't be together, but they can't get the support they need because of their justice involvement and their substance use issues. How do we support those folks better so they can get the help they need and come back and help in our community like Derek?
I don't know if I got this. Hold on, maybe my mic, the back. But I don't know, and maybe Lucas can answer this better than I can, or the judge, but there's nothing, someone from the VA may be able to speak to it better, there's nothing, especially the just involved veterans, that would preclude them from not getting benefits unless I think you're incarcerated for more than 30 days, or something similar to that. But other than that, I don't think, or Bill will probably tell me, I don't think there's anything that would preclude that from getting any type of benefits cut off, other than being incarcerated for more than a period of time. I thought it was 30 days that would cut off your benefits.
But it doesn't pay for two houses, right? If you have a family that can't stay in the same house, gotta support our folks that are justice involved so they can get the help they need and their families can stay in housing.
And great point. I don't know what you mean by legal requirements that would preclude them from. Well, protective orders. Then you have. I don't know if the VA will segregate that or not, but I sit in court every day, especially domestic violence court, and that's a public. There's a balance there where you have to kind of ensure the safety of the community or safety of the potential state's witnesses. But we run a pretrial program in Cumberland County through the Veterans Court, and we specifically are involved in the domestic violence courts, and we are involved with the district attorney's office. So they identify someone who is charged with a domestic violence crime, and then we put them in our pretrial program. And so, but it depends on the judge. Really, it's up to the judge to determine the terms of pretrial release. But most of the time, they're not permitted to have any. If someone charges another with domestic violence assault, then most of the time they're precluded to have any contact with the individual. And so there's not much you can do with that, but we put them in a pretrial program to see if we can assist them with those other needs.
To the judge's point, oftentimes the judge here in Wake County places the individual on pretrial. Part of the pretrial interview is to make sure that the individual has a place to stay, to live. In particular, if it's domestic violence, because they can't be with their spouse in the same house, if you will. So that's something that's worked through on a case-by-case basis in Wake County. Can we do better? Of course, but it's looked at very, very carefully to ensure that that veteran, that person, at a minimum, has a place to live and stay, whether it's for another relative, some other way, but there are ways, and judges here in Wake County do that each and every day. For the most part, do a really good job at it. So.
Thank you so much. We do not have any more time for questions right now, but will you all be around after the meeting for some additional questions? All right, thank you so much.
Is there brownies? Do you have brownies?
Thank you.
There are some types
All right, then I'll be here. I'll be here.
Goodies back there. Thank you, panel, so much. It was such a good discussion. Yes.
I like to mention a supporter of Derek Sharp, and that's his wife standing right there, lovely wife. Okay, Kara Sharp. That's his #1 supporter. Thank you, Kara.
All right, we are going to get our executive committee updates going, and I am going to come back to Secretary Gaskin and start with Mr. Paul Cruz. Come on up, Mr. Cruz. Thank you for being with us today.
Good. Well, it's different to see the room from this direction. It's good to see everybody. I'm sorry it's been a while since I've been here. I've been off to a lot of different places and running around doing a lot of things, so I apologize for that. But it's good to be back. And I really want to say thank you to the panel. That was an unbelievable discussion. It's really great to hear. And Lucas, you did a great job. I can't imagine having to do that. So I want to just talk to you guys a little bit today, just a few things, because we only have, I think I got 3 minutes. Is that right? Yeah, something like that. Just 3 minutes just to bring you up to date on a few things that are going on at the VA right now and things that we're working on. First off, talk a little bit about PACT Act, and if you all know, that's basically the toxic exposure. I can't remember the name that goes with it, but it's a Toxic Exposure Act, which really is making some significant changes in eligibility for services across the United States. However, in North Carolina, it turns out it is making a large impact, a very big impact. Actually, North Carolina is actually, well, isn't our network, Virginia, North Carolina, is the fastest growing veteran population in enrollment because of the PACT Act. As a matter of fact, we have gone up, since last year, we've gone up over 22,000, actually 25,000 veterans already. We're actually seeing a growth right now of about 2,000 new veterans enrolling into the VA system on a regular basis. So that is, and a majority of that growth is actually happening in the coastal area and the Raleigh, kind of this area here, where we're seeing a lot of folks coming in. But I do want to just talk a little bit about, so we're doing a lot of outreach efforts. We're trying to make sure that we're talking to veterans, we're getting veterans screened. We've done some 100,000 screenings where we found nearly 144 or 150,000 actually of those screens have come back positive. So we're able to really press on our VBA partners to make sure that they're getting our benefits processed through, and I'm sure she'll talk about this in just a moment, but really working hard. But it does mean that we are running into some problems when it comes to making sure that we have access. Because it's growing so fast, our legacy bureaucratic, as you heard earlier, our bureaucratic legacy systems don't build stuff as fast as we can. Now, we are already here in North Carolina and on the coast of Virginia, are already putting in the next 3 years, we'll have 800,000 new square feet of healthcare centers that are coming online to take care of veterans. That's in the Garner County. If you're familiar with the Garner facility that is nearing completion, it's also a new one being built in the Jacksonville area. We're building in Chesapeake, and we're also building up in Fredericksburg. So a lot of growth, but with that, we've had to do a lot of things to try to improve our access. And I think that's the next thing is we've been working very hard to make sure that we can get veterans in on a timely basis. For that, we've been doing what are called access sprints, where we're working to drill down to reasons that we're not able to get veterans in. We're trying to make sure that we don't have to turn them away to private sector through the Mission Act, because we really know that studies show that the VA care is actually the highest quality of care, and that's where we want our veterans to get that care. We are actually going into a joint project, I guess I should say, with our neighbors in upstate, in New York, actually in the Bronx, where they are losing veterans and we're gaining veterans, so we are actually bringing their providers to veterans in the Fayetteville area is our first start. About going to take care of 6,000 veterans in the Fayetteville area with Bronx folks. So we're going to have to come up with a dictionary so people can understand Lucas's dialect, you know, that New York accent in North Carolina. We're still trying to figure that one out. But no, but it's just one of the ways that we're dealing with that growth. The growth has also caused us, and some changes in eligibility has caused us some backlogs in beneficiary travel. As you know, that any veteran who is eligible for beneficiary travel, it all depends on a lot of things I'm not going to get into here, will be reimbursed for their travel to any VA medical services or any care related to VA care. And we've had a lot of backlog, significant, you may have heard of in the community. So we have actually just recently set a contract with our member services program from across the nation, where we are actually going to be outsourcing those and outsourcing that service to get it done. It has been very difficult for us to find folks here locally that want to do that type of job. It is a very menial task to work through those documents, but it is important to us to make sure that we have that moving forward. Let me make sure I'm not supposed to, yeah, okay, now I move forward. Also want to talk a little bit about something that we've just started with the PACT Act. We were able to bring in some outreach coordinators as well as strategic communications folks to work across our network to make sure that we're getting the message out, to work with our CVEBs, to work with special projects. Some of the projects are helping us with recruitment and doing some actual targeted recruitment for providers to make sure that we're getting the providers that we need from mental health providers, which we had a big loss last year, but we need to get them in, so we're bringing those in. Also working to bring in eligible veterans in our western counties, up in the Salisbury and the Asheville area, where we have a drop in enrollees, and we're trying to bring in more enrollees to give them services. And one of the big projects I'm working on, you heard me talk about the Compact Act, but we need to get communication out about the Compact Act, about people being eligible for that. as well as trying to work on an issue that we're seeing where our veterans are going to their closest emergency room to get care instead of possibly going to see an urgent care. Maybe they don't need to go for that high of a service, so we're trying to educate our veterans, especially those that we know who utilize a lot of emergency room care, and a lot of this is in rural areas, to educate them on other services that are available so that we don't have to use the most expensive and sometimes the longest wait in a waiting room to get services that they need. So we're moving forward with a lot of campaign information on that. There is also a new program out which you will start hearing more about. It's a part of our vet text. Any of y'all that are enrolled in the system may get a text already that reminds you of your appointment when it's coming up. Sometimes I think it's a little over. I know I get them. It seems like it's 4 or 5 of them. And I keep saying yes, yes 54, yes 59, yes 60, or whatever. It's the way we have to respond to them. But now this new system will also allow you within 45 minutes of your appointment to actually check in using that text system. So it'll just send you a text. You can say, yep, I'm here, I'm ready for this appointment, and it'll allow you to click. So we're trying to do everything we can to speed the process up, build efficiencies in that process so we can take care. So those are some of the major things that are going on. Let me see if whoops, don't want to go there yet. Those are the major things that are going on across the VA. VHA side of the house. There's a lot of new things that are happening, a lot of new, there's going to be an expansion in the caregiver support program over this next fiscal year as well. There continue to be new mental health outreach programs and growth in the mental health programs, and of course eligibility will continue to grow. The President has decided that in the PACT Act at Section 103 it actually said that our eligibility for the different campaigns and different growth in that program would go all the way to 32, but we have decided to bring that all to happen in fiscal year 24. So a lot of new expansion is going to be coming. You'll be hearing a lot of new programs that are out there. So with that, I think I'm going to hand it over to my colleague from the Veterans Benefit Administration. Oh, you got to go backwards? Yeah, okay. All right.
We're going to back up just a moment and welcome Secretary Walter Gaskin back to the stage.
Thank you. We had a lot of information that I will cover that was talked here about that communication, that getting together. And the one thing I will say to all of the organizations that are providing support, stop turning this into a circular firing squad because of funding. That's what we compete rather than collaborate. And I'll talk more about that. That's what we got to do to help veterans. Now, the things of what's happening now within DMVA, which is probably, where's the remote? I got this thing. All right. Yep. What's happening now? A lot of you've probably heard about the Fayetteville Veterans Home closure and relocation. Probably if there's anything that have pissed me off more than anything else has been the disinformation about not taking care of veterans. The Fayetteville Veterans Home first is one of 2 categories of our veterans home. It sits on a federal compound. So to say that Fayetteville is a Fayetteville community center, it's not. It is a veterans home. There are 19 different counties represented in that Fayetteville home. And they are 85 residents that are going to be moved by their choice. First of all, a veteran that lives in the veterans home based on criteria, they are not homeless people. This is their home. This is a benefit that they have received based on availability. The reason why we are closing veterans home in Fayetteville is not because of the lack of funding, contrary to belief. It is because it's in a sucking hole. The place cannot be fixed because of location. Now, it is a lease property that we got from the government for Fayetteville Home, and we have over the last 2 years tried to fix all of the things that was wrong with that home. And each time we try to fix something from the roof to the kitchen to the wall, we discovered that the water was not coming down from the top. It's also seeping up from the bottom. And the one thing that that came from my decision is that could collect any catastrophe, because where that home is located is the lowest place in North Carolina, not just Fayetteville, but North Carolina. And all of the water that we saw from the last storms floods down. If you talk to the director of Fayetteville, there are 27 other buildings that are on the high ground where the hospital is, concerned about the river overflowing. And what her point to me as I'm making a decision about this is, if we flood at the hospital, that means the home is already underwater. That's how bad it was. So the first thing to me is, what about those 85 persons? Now, I'm telling you, when they looked at the damage that's done, the inability to fix, it all became down to this. How much does it cost us to fix? And it went from $20 million to $27 million to fix it with no guarantee because of the location that you are. We just finished Kernersville. What was the state portion of that Kernersville home? $27 million. So I can build a whole nother home rather than to fix a place where it isn't. What is my next concern? What about the 85 folks that we have in these homes? These are homes, not hospitals, despite the fact that those 81 of those 85, the other 4 were in hospice, were dual rooms. That means hospital looking, 2 people, 1 television. That's not how the other homes are. What about the continuity of care? The continuity of care in each one of those homes is they either have private pay or they have VA pay, or they have Medicare pay for those. So when I sat down with the residents, what I said to them is, you can have choices of where you want to go, and I will assist in that, no matter the differentiation in the price of where you're living. You have ensured that the same medical care that you came here with for acceptance will be continued. And of course, the other thing is transportation of where you're going. What I told them, the choice you don't have is to stay here. This place will no longer be here. Now, the average age of those guys is 80 years old. They're there because they had exceeded the care that can be provided at home or at the hospital. They need constant care. So this is what I was angry about. For someone to walk in there, for someone who has dementia or someone who's concerned about this, I'm having to move, and say, they're kicking you out. What are you going to do? It's absolutely criminal, because it has never been the case that we don't look out for our veterans. That's why we exist. These veterans will be taken care of. There are 85 fellow folders that will be expanded, and as of the day, there are only 8 folks left of the 85 that don't have a process of where they want to go. So it has never been that about and I will answer any other questions you may have about the Fayetteville home. What we are now engaged in is what the real problem as it is with the General Assembly for adjusting on funding, because everybody has under this false belief, and I hear it even with the Kernersville, about taxpayers' money. You know who built Kernersville, Black Mountain, and Kingston? It was the veterans. who built that, because it's their pay per day. Money that goes into the trust fund is what actually builds that. So when someone say, hey, I got to jump on the General Assembly to make sure that we can do another place, I'm saying to them, I want the General Assembly to provide money to the trust fund annually, but they haven't. But do I have the money? The reason why VA gives us these homes to build is that you have to have your 35% shovel-ready money. That's what we have for the coming home in Wake County. That's what we had for Kingston and Black Mountain, is that out of that trust fund, we were able to have our portion of the money. How does the fund continue to build? It's because of the money that the veterans place in on a continuous basis, whether that's private pay, VA, or Medicare. So what I'm breaking out for the General Assembly is, I don't want that trust fund to become insolvent because they're taking money out to give to other organizations. Do the causes that they give to other organizations fair and deal? Absolutely. That's what I said about the Circular Fire Squad. There are organizations that truly believe the General Assembly gave them money, but it came out of my trust fund. For example, I'm giving Independent Fund $1.5 million this time. I'm giving Veterans Life Center $750,000. Do they have as good causes? Absolutely, they have a great cause. But that's, if the General Assembly wants to help them, then appropriate the money. Don't come and take it out of the trust fund for what I need to do other things in these special grants. Same thing with the 1.5 that I'm giving to the Purple Heart Fund this year. What I do need from the General Assembly is people. I can't buy people. I have to have structure that's given to the department to run the programs. You heard talk about the incarceration, the transition. That falls under my transition department that are working with Secretary Ishii and DAC to do that transition. That department consists of one person, Andre Allett. I want people. Her counterpart in Virginia has 22 people in it that do transition. Florida has 15 to do that. South Carolina has 12. That's what I'm saying. I can't, it doesn't matter how much money I have, I can't buy an FTE slot. That has to be allocated by the General Assembly. That's what I asked them for. I asked them for 60 veteran service officers. The ratio of veteran service officers currently to the 800,000 veterans in the state of North Carolina is 1 to 4,500. Like state, like Florida, that has as many veterans from 800,000 to 1 million, have 1,500 certified veteran service officers. That's the problem. How I explain what a veteran service officer is? When a veteran is in the military, they put money in the bank. We call those benefits. When they get out of that, they walk out to that bank to withdraw those earned benefits, and there's no teller. There's no one to explain to them what the PAC Act means, what the Compact Act means, what the Mission Act means, and Lord help them if they're doing VA math. So that's what we train the veteran service officers to do. Any other things that the return on investments that veteran service officers provide, they would be rich. These were the lowest paid persons in state government, a veteran service officer. And not only were they lowest paid, but they didn't receive, if you went for a business and you didn't take their health care plan, you would be compensated in salary. The only thing that you get from state government is thank you, that you're not taking your benefits for so that's a part of the outreach. The other part of outreach is I'm often asked, how many veterans are in the state of North Carolina? I don't know, only because of either Mark Belos or Paul Cruz, that because veterans has either gone to va.gov, they have engaged in something associated with VA, that's how we get the numbers. I know for a fact that there are about 300,000 more veterans in the state of North Carolina than we have. So the VA is just like the military. It's an all-volunteer organization. If you don't petition that organization, you don't get it. You have to do that. There are a lot of things, and everybody keeps talking about the VA. The money is there. We have to petition. That's where the state comes in. I think the state's obligation, because the state cannot make a veteran, but the state can thank the veteran for its service to the nation and to the state by connecting them with their benefits, by being oversight of those connections. Whether or not VA is doing this obligation, making sure that there is a connection between the healthcare center and your benefits, that's what they do, and that's what I don't have the personnel to do, to provide the oversight and the referrals that's necessary. There should be no doubt when every veteran is made available of all the benefits that you see around that room back here, there's no reason why every veteran should know that. The reason why I say this is because any of you that's ever graduated from an educational institution, by the time you get off the stage, the Alumni Association is right there to swear you in. But I have no idea, nor is there any requirement for a veteran to check in anywhere. So that's why I encourage everybody, if you got a veteran, whether they think they need something or not, they still should be registered as a veteran, because there are benefits that they can get just by being a veteran. I heard someone says that nobody asked. That is absolutely true. There are organizations that will give you, for your service as a veteran, if they just know. You go to buy a car and they say, hey, you got your DD-214? How do I know you're a veteran? Or, you know, they don't even accept the card for being retired veteran. They want something that they prove. How do we prove that folks are veterans? The DD-214. Who do they come to get to verify that? So that's what I'm saying, is that the folks that will ensure that happens works in the department. The department has never been structured to do the work that is required to support their obligations, to include the grant administrations. And all of those director grants that I got came out of my trust fund. Finally, let me get my last slide here. What's coming up next? I get the dubious honor of briefing just what I talked to you to the Oversight Committee. But this one that is happening on the 30th, all they want to talk about is what's happened with Fayetteville. So we'll address that. There is no, on the House side, there's no Veterans Committee like on the Senate side. So when I brief my budget, I brief it to Gen Gov. The same folks that are in Gen Gov are in the Oversight Committee. So when I talk to them, I talk about this is what you need to help all of the veterans in here. The next event that I get to go to is the National Association of Directors, NASVDA, where all of the directors come together to talk about the issues of veterans. The thing that I deal with, there are only 3 states in the union that has the Veterans Administration and the military affairs under one director or secretary, New Jersey, Utah, and North Carolina. So that means half of my resources are spent doing the military side, which is understaffed, let alone what the veteran sides are. And we talk about best practices at that convention on how to get there. And then finally, we have upcoming the training of the veteran service officers for both county, state, and the Veteran Service Organization. I say this with love. There are only 150 veteran service officers in the state of North Carolina. 28 work for the state, 110 work for the counties, and 12 work for Veteran Service Organization, the Big Six, VFW, American Legion, AMVET, DAV. But that's what I mean about Circular Fire Squad. In order for us to do the work for all of the veterans, I have asked the counties to drop the boundaries. Because you're a veteran service officer and you have counties around you that don't, then we should service all the veterans. Just like we do when we have VBLs or the old VEEPs. Veterans can come from anywhere to service. And what the counties have asked of me is that veteran service officers become an entity in their county alone, not as a part of DHS, where folks that come to see the veteran service officer has to go to those that are lined up for food stamps or welfare, but they're coming to get their earned benefits. That's something that we have to do in this whole idea of servicing our veterans and taking that 800,000, which that plus the active duty provides the economic impact second only to agriculture in the state of North Carolina. That's what I mean by the return on investment. When these veteran service officers are very proud of getting benefits for veterans, they talk to it in dollar figure, but they were the lowest paid folks in the state of North Carolina. And what we have done finally is that we have established within class and comps a veteran service officer now has an MOS and is not considered just an admin person. But they are, then you can talk about the pay scale that meets these veteran service officers. And they don't have to compete with VA or counties in order to have a decent pay for what they do. Thank you, unless you have any questions.
I've been a service officer for 12 years, and I love hearing that word so many times today. I think that a veteran service officer is the center of the life of a veteran, and if not, we should be. All right, next I have Ms. Carletta Robinson representing the Veterans Benefits Administration, Winston-Salem. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here on behalf of our director, Mark Belos. He's at a town hall in Fayetteville today. So I get the hard job, he gets the easy one, but I'm happy to be here. Just want to, I always, if you think you struggle with this thing, I do too. It's hard, the clicker. So what's happening now? The PACT Act has been signed into the law since 2022 now, and we have over 1.3 million claims related to the PACT Act since that time. Over 879,000 have been completed, and that's over 75% of approval. So out of that 879,000 claims that we've completed, over 75% have been granted. So that's awesome. Under the PACT Act, we have awarded $3.6 billion in benefits. The state of North Carolina has completed 40,000 PACT Act related claims and granted over $165 million in benefits for just veterans in the state of North Carolina. The most frequent claim conditions related to the PACT Act is hypertensive vascular disease and allergic rhinitis. Those are the two highest granted claims as well. We do have to deny some of those claims, and most of the time they're denied based on the condition wasn't occurred in service or the presumptive status wasn't established. So innovation. One of the ways that we at the VA like to approach things is the three-prong approach: people, process, and technology. From October 2022 through December 2023, the VA nationwide workforce has grown to about 26%, which is about over 6,000 employees in just that short period of time. The regional office in Winston-Salem has also grown. We went from 924 full-time employees to over 1,100. We're closer to that 1,200, almost 1,300 mark now. With the growth of those employees, we continue to see a lot of veterans in our public contact office as well as our out-based locations. And one of the things that we have done for the veterans that come downtown to the Winston-Salem Regional, free parking for those veterans. This helps them with the commute and also with monetary benefits without having to pay for parking when they have their appointments. For the veterans who are unable to attend appointments, we do have online appointments available for the veterans, as well as telehealth benefits in Greenville. And in Kernersville, we also have benefits personnel on location in that area. So outreach strategy, our office prides itself on outreach. Our director likes to say, if you want to learn anything about how to reach the veterans, please come to Winston-Salem, because he believes in educating our veteran population to learn the benefits that we have throughout the VA. One of the things that we've done with that outreach is increase benefit utilization. So about 5 years ago, we only had 25% of the state veteran population using benefits through the VA. Now we're at 40%. So that's about a 15% increase, which is tremendous. But we still have a long way to go with getting our veterans the benefits that they deserve. And none of this would be possible without the combination of the working group, the VSOs, NC Serves, NC Works, and the Bridge Home. We collaborate continuously with all these organizations in North Carolina to help us with our outreach strategies of where to go, where we need to be, who needs to see us the most, basically. One of the things that we are planning soon, hopefully towards the end of the summer, is a veteran stand-down, homeless stand-down in the Winston-Salem area. More details to come on that, but if you are interested in helping us with that process, please reach out to our office. We will have another VBL soon, that's Veterans Benefit Live event. More details to come on date and time of that location. So those are my slides, but one of the things we also like to do before we leave is kind of share a good news story. A lot of times, you know, when you think about veterans benefits, you only hear the bad. So we always like to show you how we're able to help make improvements in a veteran's life, especially through our outreach. So I want to talk to you about Mr. Wilson. He is a North Carolina veteran with a service-connected knee condition since 1973. And his condition had gotten so worse that he was at the point where he could not walk, move, do any of that, but he was only rated 30%. So he was in jeopardy of losing his space in the nursing home that he was in due to the funds, basically. His son traveled to one of our VBL events in Western North Carolina, and at that event, we were able to look at Mr. Wilson's claim right there, see that he needed an increase, got the claim rated, granted, and promulgated all in the same day, to where now Mr. Wilson is 100% service connected. His nursing home facility space has been secured, and his family appreciates that outreach that we were able to do on the spot for him, and it just saved his life. Like he liked to say, it was just a knee, but it saved my life. So that is just one of the good news stories that we like to share, because you got to hear that sometimes. And that is my slide. So thank you.
Next up, we have Renee Rader with the Department of Health and Human Services.
Hi, everyone. It's always a pleasure to be here. I have to start my presentation today with an apology and a confession. I had a colleague of mine help me create some beautiful slides for the program today. They're lots of graphics, very awesome. Unfortunately, when I went to send them to be included in this program, I sent the slides from last year. So there are no slides today. There are slides today, but I'm not going to show them to you because they are incredibly outdated. The good news is that you don't have to watch me try to figure out how to use the clicker to move the presentation forward. But I'm going to try to stay on topic today, even without the slides. But before I get down from this podium, if y'all can make sure, I have 3 things that I want to ask you all for help with today. So if I don't mention 3 things, don't let me get back down. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is Medicaid expansion. This is something that we talk about all the time, and hugely excited about it. So Medicaid expanded, as you know, on December 1st, 2023. On that day, over 300,000 North Carolinians became eligible for Medicaid automatically. They didn't have to do anything, didn't have to sign up, nothing. On top of that, we've got about another 300,000 North Carolinians who we believe are eligible for Medicaid, and so we are doing our best to reach out to folks and let people know how easy it is to apply for benefits. These benefits include medical benefits, behavioral health benefits, which we're really excited about at our Division of Mental Health, Developmental Disabilities, and Substance Use Services, and it also includes dental benefits. And I got to cheat and look at my notes for a second. So with Medicaid expansion, we are now able to cover adults ages 19 to 64 with higher incomes. So that means a single person with an income up to $20,000 a year now qualifies for Medicaid benefits. A family of 3, it's $34,000. So that's incredible. Also wanted to, I was going to show you, but I can't. We have a new Medicaid enrollment dashboard that we are updating monthly, and you can look at that dashboard. It's highly interactive. And if you are looking at that dashboard, you will see that our biggest enrolling population right now is our youth, our young adults, I call them youth, ages 19 to 26. And we also have, this is a good thing, but we have a disproportionate number of people in rural communities who are enrolling in Medicaid. So that's all good news. The other thing is that people are actually using their Medicaid services. So for the new enrollees, we've filled 150,000 prescriptions since December 1st, which is significant. And the other one that's really significant is we have, for new enrollees, paid more than $2.5 million in claims for dental services. So that's exciting. So here's my first ask for help. We know that there are veterans in North Carolina who have gaps in healthcare access and who have gaps in healthcare insurance. We're estimating it's about 14,000. We have on the DHHS NC Medicaid website a Medicaid enrollment toolkit. I am going to ask those of you who work in veteran-serving organizations to please help us get the word out. There are flyers, there's information, there's videos. Information is provided in both English and Spanish. We also have some videos that are done in American Sign Language, which is fantastic. So anything that you can do to help us get that word out so that folks have access to those benefits. Moving along, for those of you who are familiar with our LME MCO system, I just wanted to make note that on February 1st, we are going to have a major consolidation. We are reducing the number of MCOs in North Carolina from 6 to 4. And there are lots of details about that would have been in my presentation, but I'm going to have to skip those because I can't remember all the details of that. But I will say that the number one priority in all of this is to ensure that people experience no disruption in services, because the whole point of this was to make sure that we were doing what was right for the citizens of North Carolina. The other priority we have is we don't want any of our providers to fall between the cracks, because if we don't have providers, then we're not able to provide those critical behavioral health services. Wanted to give you a quick update. We have a 988 performance dashboard that we recently published. We're really big on dashboards at North Carolina DHHS. This is really exciting for us. We're one of the only states in the country to have a dashboard like this. I wanted to point out just a couple of veteran-specific data points that are on that dashboard. One is that we have the number of veterans who either call 988 and press 1 to be connected with the veteran line, or they self-identify as a veteran when they call when they talk to one of our counselors. We have the number of veterans who do that, and I got a cheat. In December of last year, so we had 1,500 veterans call 988, and that includes both the ones who pressed ones and the ones who just continued on. The other important thing that we have on that dashboard that's relevant to veterans is the number of people who were referred to veteran services and veteran supports. So in the last year, it was a small number, 446, which it's actually not a small number when you think about it. But we will continue to make sure that we make those referrals when appropriate. The last thing I wanted to mention is I wanted to talk about the state's historic investments in behavioral health this year. So with Medicaid expansion, there was a lot of federal dollars that came into the state, and the General Assembly was generous enough to appropriate about $835 million of that for behavioral health services in North Carolina. We are so very excited about that. Some of the things that we are using those funds for are to increase provider rates for behavioral health services so that we attract more quality behavioral health providers into our system, because we know we have an access issue and we haven't increased our rates in many years. We're also wanting to make sure that we are supporting people having access to those critical services in North Carolina. Other things that we are investing in right now include crisis services. We are also investing in justice services for people who are behavioral health involved. We are investing in workforce development. So that includes both direct support professional investments and also peer support services investments. And this is my second ask for help. As part of these efforts, we are doing a number of stakeholder advisory groups. We are out there talking with our communities. I would ask that if you have an interest in participating in one of our advisory groups, that you either check out our website, which is, you can just find by Googling DMHDDSUS, and see which advisory groups are available and volunteer to participate. I try to participate in as many of these groups as I can because I want to make sure that we are talking about our veterans and making sure that the services and supports that we put in place make sense for our veterans as well as the rest of the population of North Carolina. But I can't be at all those meetings, and so we definitely need your help. The other thing would be to attend our side-by-side webinar, which is a monthly webinar where we talk about updates to what we've done, what we're going to do, and you'll have an opportunity to provide feedback in those settings as well. So that was my second ask. Third ask, I got my third ask. My third ask is, along with that $835 million, we don't have enough staff to support all that work. We really don't. And so we are in the process of hiring a whole team of temporary staff. And these are long-term temporary, so we have funds for 2 years at least. But we are trying to hire a whole team of temporary staff, everything from clinicians to communications folks to contract specialists, all levels of experience, all levels of skill, and we are recruiting actively for those positions now. If you are an organization who has a job board where you can post these positions for us, wouldn't it be cool if I come back next time and I say that 50% of the people we hired for these positions are veterans? I would love to be able to do that. If you know someone personally who is interested in temporary employment, again, it is temporary employment. The downside is that there are no state benefits, but the upside is these are mostly remote positions, which is a definite benefit. But folks can send me their resume directly. I've received a number of them so far, and I'd be happy to get those to the right place. So, I lied. I got one more ask of y'all. So I would be remiss. The North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services is reminding folks that it is flu season, and one of the best things that you can do to protect yourself, your family, your loved ones, your community is to get your flu shot and your COVID shot. And if you are interested in knowing where you can do that, we do have a website. It's called myspot.nc.gov. So that was for, but get your shot. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much. You did have some slides. All right, next up, Miss Gabriela Gonzalez. Thank you.
I'm always the one that has to go fast forward. Okay, the end. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to 2024. New goals. I'm still tired from last year. I wanted to give an overview of Division of Workforce Solutions since it is a new year and it's kind of a refresher, and give you a little overview of the money, the staff that we have, and then of course separately our veteran staff. As you know, we are part of NC Works, and our grant funding was cut. We are now a cozy 47 people across North Carolina, and that has been a challenge. And with that, I'm going to go just to the next slide because I want to show you how we are divided. So these are our 8 prosperity zones, which are also called regions. And you can kind of see how we are distributed. Now, remember, we used to be close to 100. Then we went down to 66. Now we're 47. We're now covering more counties. One person covers more counties than ever. However, I have a wonderful team. The key words that I heard today was outreach, holistic approach, collaboration. And I think I can speak for everyone that this is very, very important. We now rely more than ever on our counterparts to get our job done. So we also, our staff that are all veterans, so we established a rapport with the veterans that are coming in. The other important thing is that I believe in is coordinated entry. Again, I'm going to keep saying that at every meeting because we have all these collaborations. Wherever that veteran walks in, that walk-in should connect that veteran to all the other resources. That house he walks into should know about our services in North Carolina. May it be DHHS, the VSO, NC Serves, Veterans Bridge Home, Veterans of the North Carolinas, and of course us. You know, we are focusing on employment. However, when the veteran walks in, they're not necessarily only have the employment goal because we serve veterans with significant barriers to employment. And with that comes other connecting resources that we work with. We are involved in stand-downs. We also are very proud that our veterans specialists are involved. I believe there are now up to 11 throughout North Carolina, and they seem to still grow, and that's a good thing because we need that as well. So let's keep working together. I think that is very important. The more we know about each other, the better off we are, and the better we can serve that veteran. And, you know, and this is the service delivery, and this is what Division of Workforce Solutions does. And then you have NC Works Career Centers, and then you have us as well, the Veteran Services representatives, which most people don't connect with. So that's why I'm highlighting this again. NC Works, Veteran Services, we are here for you. Thank you so much.
All right, next up with the update from the North Carolina Community Veteran Engagement Boards is our good friend, Phil Tarango.
Well, you see the picture. You saw it the last meeting. During that meeting, there was a lot of interest in one particular topic that I spoke to, and that was Pamlico Rose. This organization, their mission is helping women veterans transition to civilian life. And they have a lot of issues, and that's what these people are wanting to do, is help them get better and help them have a healthy life. Their motto this year is healthy eating, healthy living, and they've finished their construction, sidewalks, and you name it, they're in. The AmeriCorps Gardens, they have two AmeriCorps funded gardens, one at the Pamlico Rose and one at Beaufort Community College. And that effort is generating a lot of produce, which will be the basis for a lot of their nutritional education and training that will be a part of the retreats that are coming. Their retreat program is gonna go full force this year now that the facilities are ready. The concept is every month, at least a one-day retreat and then multiple day retreats. And as a part of those retreats, they're going to focus on one particular therapy, be it the yoga, meditation, the art therapies, and art therapies there include painting, woodworking, pottery, and photography. So you get one day that starts with a focus on healthy eating. Then you go to the day of the retreat focusing on a specific therapy, dinner, and the evening will be more counseling, effectively counseling, and question and answer, and helping people, the ladies, get to where they are able to adjust better to civilian life. And that's what their focus is on. Get to the next slide. The questions last time were, who do we contact? Well, I answered Facebook and I answered the founder. And that's, founder is Dr. Robert Sands. He is a PhD. He's actually primarily been a teacher. Contact with the military. I went to Air Command and Staff College. I was in the Air Force. A few years after I was there, he was there as a professor. So he's around the military. His wife worked at OSD for a long time. She's now with the Peace Corps in DC. The other person that is a key contact, Shannon Stanbridge. She is their media and community outreach person. So she does their Facebook page. She does a lot of community email blasts that I'll call them. And she's the one doing a lot of the updating. So you've got their specific emails, street address, mailing address at the post office, and you've got the website info this time with a reminder on their Facebook. So you know how to get hold of them now. If you have any questions, you can, I'll do my best to answer them right now. Otherwise, get hold of either Robert or Shannon, and they will be happy to help you. And I thank you very much, and just wanted to bring everybody up to speed on what's happening.
All right. Announcements, upcoming events. Mr. Terry Westbrook could not be with us today, but he will be officially retired on the 31st. It looks like he's going to be playing a lot of golf. Nice picture, Dave. All right, happening now with the Governor's and Mayor's Challenge. I'm going to go quickly through this, and if you have any questions about what's on here or about participating in any of the special projects, my email address is crystal.miller@mecnc.gov. That's the shortest version, and that will get to me. But the Governor and Mayor's Challenge team's going to meet on Tuesday to set forth our meetings for the remainder of this year. Our priorities are still to identify those veterans. Like you've heard multiple times today, we need to identify them, assess them for suicidality. When we talk about safety, we're not talking about doing a clinical safety plan, because as lay people are not clinical. We're talking about helping that person be safe until we can connect them to care, which is our second priority, and then lethal means safety. You can access the Ask the Question toolkit at the North Carolina GWG website under resources. We're going to have some pocket cards created that will be out this year just to help individuals who are working in the community and resource providers, specifically intake people who are intaking people for resources to teach them how to ask the question. I can't see this. Crisis and resource intercepts, very important that you all know where your crisis and resource intercepts are. 988 is awesome. I love the dashboard. I'm going to highlight something about the dashboard in just a minute. And we have training still. We have probably still about 3,000 seats that are free on Psych Armor training. Go to that link and you can click North Carolina Governor's Challenge and or Mecklenburg Mayor's Challenge and complete 15 different free trainings that will help you to better understand your military clientele. Then we are kicking off 2024 with CALM training. Stop Soldiers Suicide has and they are here, they have a grant, and I had to write it down, a comprehensive suicide prevention grant to do training through June. I listed the trainings, and let's see, I don't have ands on that page. Durham Gun Safety Program is part of the Lethal Means Safety. They are doing training to help other people stand up gun safety programs or firearm safety programs. The Greenville, because there's the Greenville Firearm Safety Coalition, please use those links. These PowerPoint will be uploaded to the GWG website within a couple of days. Go to those links, read about those and what they are doing. So they now are standing up a pilot veteran firearm safety team in Wake County. And Mr. Paul Berry come up with the Vet Safe, suicide awareness and firearms education to call theirs. We are standing up one in Mecklenburg County and also in Cumberland County. And all of that leads to our priority 3, lethal means safety. I have put Ann Gasparini's email on here. If you are interested in having your team trained, please reach out to her. And they can set up these trainings that they offer. Some of them do offer CEUs. And so please do reach out. All right, I really want to highlight the Together with Veterans, Western North Carolina Veterans Purpose. Together with Veterans was a rural suicide prevention pilot program designed by Rocky Mountain Myrick in Vision 19 and WICHE, which is the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education. They developed this program to go into rural communities and have a suicide prevention program set up for veterans by veterans. This team took this to a whole new level. Lee Tabor, who is the Veteran Service Officer in Macon County, led this effort. There is her team. And they purchased a gun safe, one of her favorite things, and she emailed me so I could, but they purchased a gun safe, which is staying at no wrong door. They have an MOU with them to keep that gun safe there. They have had multiple veterans turn in their weapons to be held in that gun safe during crisis. So what they're doing is working. And when I talk about Opie's story, Opie was a homeless veteran. He had no job. He was in active addiction when he sought out her services 8 years ago. They were able to get him benefits, health care, mental health support, support for recovery, and a job, and he has been sober for 8 years, and he is a peer support specialist who they reach out to. They also do a social every other Thursday night where they get about 12 to 14 veterans on a regular basis, and through that group, they have gotten referrals for mental health care. So they are doing what all counties should be doing, and if you want to know how to set that program up, you will want to contact Lee Tabor in Macon County. Contact me. I will put you in touch with her. But they have a beautiful, beautiful program, and they're so proud of it. And the whole entire community really surrounds them. They had a higher number of individuals calling 988 than some of the more populated. Per 10,000, they had a very high number, and that's because Lee's putting up billboards with 988 on it. Yep. All right, mental health first aid. If you are interested in being trained in mental health first aid, just go to this link and you can see some of the already scheduled classes that are going to be taking place. Just go to that link. You can register online, and Mental Health First Aid is an excellent program. Moving North Carolina service members, veterans, and families forward in Statesville, North Carolina, my hometown, woohoo. We're going to, on April the 24th, let you get an in-depth look at those subcommittees and what the subcommittees are doing and what our plans for 2024 are. I feel like we have a lot of momentum. I feel like we're going to get somewhere. I feel like I want to go with Secretary Gaskin to talk to the General Assembly so that they will fund what we are trying to do. All right, now we have time for public comments. If anyone would like, the stand is there. And anyone with any questions or comments?
Good afternoon. I'm Curtis Leary with Cary American Legion Post 67, Vice Commander and Public Relations Officer. We normally host a Veterans Benefit Live in March. And unfortunately, due to the fact that our glorious legislators in D.C. can't make up their mind about a budget, we've having to postpone that from March. Now we're planning for September. So does anyone here not know what a Veterans Benefit Live is? Great, thank you. I don't have to explain that. We're just a host, okay? So the VBA from Winston-Salem and around the state of North Carolina come to Cary, and we normally treat about 1,000 veterans, a little bit less, a little bit more during a 3-day event. Unfortunately, I have been told that the Winston-Salem division of the VBA was told by someone in Washington, D.C. with the VA that they can no longer stay after hours. They've had to cut their hours down. So that means that the veterans coming there for help, they've got a cutoff around 2 o'clock in the afternoon so that they can meet their regular hours of work. Before that, the VBA people and the veteran service officers were allowed to stay as long as they wanted, normally cut off about, well, the last veteran would leave around 8 o'clock, sometimes 9:30 at night. But since we've had to cut back, we've had to turn away veterans. We said, come back the next day. Or I'm sorry, it's over with, you'll have to come back or go someplace else next year. So you gotta ask yourself, which is more important, paying overtime or helping a veteran who is in need? So I hope that's changed and that the Winston-Salem people can work as long as they want to help veterans. That's why we're there. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, hi, thank you for having us here. My name is Sofia Roja, and my colleague back there is also a veteran, and Reverend Henry Edmond. We represent the North Carolina Registry for Brain Health, as well as the Duke and UNC Alzheimer's Disease Research Center. So our work really encompasses 3 different areas. One of them is the educational piece. So bringing you information about how to keep your brain healthy, but also hopefully delay the onset of mental diseases, disorders like Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, either delay the onset or also hopefully maybe someday being able to prevent it as well. The other piece of what we do is to connect everybody in North Carolina with resources about not only how to keep your brain healthy, but what happens if you start to experience either symptoms or start to see symptoms in others and possibly loved ones as well. And so we're trying to connect you to those resources to know what to do. And so part of it is, again, to bring you those caregiver. For example, if it's not you facing the symptoms, it may be a loved one. So what do you do when you see those symptoms? What do you do when someone is diagnosed? What do you do when maybe you need to seek treatment? And so that's another piece of what we do. And the last one is to connect people with research if that's something that they're interested in. And so we get to be lucky and we get to go out into the community. That is where we do our work. We connect people to these resources, and we also invite them to be part of the change. So in the future, for example, we know that traumatic brain injury is one of the risk factors as to later on a faster decline in cognitive health. And so what can we do about it? One of the ways is, of course, through information, which we provide for free. But the other way is also to, if you get involved in research, this is at no cost to you as well, and no cost to your communities. So that's the other piece. But I wanted to bring this all together and just highlight something that my colleague noticed at one event. It was at a Veterans Resource Fair. And after the event, he came and told me, you know, Sophia, I was there, and we were trying to connect people to resources, but the people most at risk were not there. I'm going to say it again. The people most at risk were not there. And so we're trying to change that. We're trying to meet people where they're at, but truly. And so part of our work is really to do that. And so we ask you in a way to invite us into your community, see if that's possible. And so we can bring this, and we can bridge that gap, bring the resources, bring the research, bring as well the educational piece, and to ask also Judge Oliveira's question of what's in it for you? It's like, what's in it for us? We're really here to serve you, to serve your communities. We are state funded. Everything we do is for free. And so yeah, I invite you to come and chat with us and connect with us. We are just seeking find ways to support our communities and build a veteran-centered culture, as Judge Menendez was speaking earlier. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Christopher Mitchell, and I am a survivor. I say that by the grace of God. Okay, my name is Christopher Mitchell, and I'm a survivor. I say that in three parts by, number one, the grace of God. Number two, intestinal fortitude, and number three, the Veterans Administration. When I got out of the military, it was rough. I'm going to answer some questions. It might not be the way you might be able to handle them, but I'm going to give them to you straight because this is serious. We are dying. Number one, last stat that I took, and I'm a veteran advocate as well. On average, 6 veterans a day are checking out by suicide for the last consecutive 20 years. So you can count 6 veterans that are not going to be here tomorrow for the last consecutive 20 years. That's going on. If it was not for the Veterans Administration, mental health, everybody say mental health. Mental health is real. It's a invisible wound that we all have to challenge every now and then in ourselves. So I won't talk about my journey, but I will answer some questions that are on the table. What do we do to find those veterans that we know that's out there? Number one, they're showing up, and they're not talking, they're not saying that they're veterans because we need to do the same thing that the military is doing. There are memos out there, the Wilkie memo, the Carson memo, and the Curta memo. And what they do in the military, let me just do this right here, please. So what they do are for the people that get in trouble in the military, They get dishonorable discharges. These are the people that are dying. They get bad conduct discharges. And what is happening is these memos are allowing them to get those discharges overturned. And then they get that esprit de corps back, and they get that, that sense of being back. Well, we don't have anything in the civilian world to help veterans when they get in trouble in the civilian world. That they get in trouble, or we get in trouble, thank God that I haven't, but we get in trouble and then we're inside of the civilian system that doesn't know that we have those invisible wounds. We're trying to make the pain go away. We're trying to stop the noise. That's why we're dealing with the drugs. That's why we're doing those things. If we can get some type of memos, some type of words to the civilian court systems to have that mitigating circumstances, we could save the lives of our veterans. So if we can take that same approach. And then secondly, we want to take the reentry approach. Reentry, what they do, the reason why those people are coming out of prison and walking in those facilities is because the reentry approach gave them the opportunity to be looked at as human beings again. Well, if we take the same approach for our veterans and we say, okay, we know you guys got the short end of the stick. We know, and I'm talking, I got buddies right now that they don't even want to talk about veterans. They don't even want to say that they're veterans. So in that aspect, if we take that approach, that same approach, we can literally save these lives of our veterans. Please excuse me, and I am nervous as I ever been. So sorry, guys. But yeah, if that happens, those two approaches, I guarantee you, the reentry approach, just look a little deeper into what the reentry approach is all about. We got people coming out of prison and they're coming into safe places to get the assistance. Well, the veterans in the same aspect, if we do the same thing for them, we can help them in the same way. So again, Veterans Administration, you guys might not be perfect. And there are some challenges that you still have to approach. But because of the VA services, I'm here today, and I'm doing a whole lot better than I ever would have been if it had not been for you. So I want to thank you guys for everything you do on behalf of my buddies and those that serve like yourself.
Good afternoon. My name's Hunter Combass. I'm the new director over at the Raleigh Vet Center. I just kind of wanted to introduce myself to the crowd because it's my first time here. It's kind of hard to follow up your speech, sir. You know, Rangers do lead the way. All right. Just if the Raleigh Vet Center as a whole, we deal with veterans having issues with PTSD, MST, and other readjustment issues. We serve combat veterans, National Guard and Reserve, and we serve veterans in the openly using their school benefits as well. So if you have any questions for me, or you have anybody to send over my way, I'm new enough, I still don't even know my own number. 919-361-6419. All right, hey, everybody, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's nice to meet you and welcome. All right, if you would like to register for email updates, just go to ncgwg.org. If you need to find your local VSO, go to www.milvets.nc.gov. What else we got up there? You can join us by live stream on Facebook by liking the Governor's Institute page. And they offer captioning and the meeting agenda and minutes, and the PowerPoint will be posted in a few days today. All right. If you would, please take out your phone and scan this and give us your feedback. We love QR codes. We are in the day of QR codes, and it's the best way for us to get the information. What do you think about the meeting? What do you think about the structure? Give us your feedback. Be honest. We want to hear it. Thank you all for coming. We appreciate all of the public speakers. Oh, yes, if you did not register on your way in, please stop at one of the little kiosks on the way out and register that you attended today. Okay? All right. Thank you, everyone.